You're standing on a plain of dried mud, somewhere between two rivers, and the air smells like wet clay and smoke. Thousands of hands are shaping bricks. Thousands of mouths are speaking the same words. And above you, a tower is climbing toward the sky so fast it feels like the earth itself is being pulled upward. Then the ground shakes, and nothing is ever the same again. But to understand what broke that day, we have to go back, way back, to the mud. A long time ago, someone in a river valley scooped up a handful of wet clay. They mixed it with straw and packed it into a rough shape. Then they set it in the sun and waited. What came out was a brick. Not a great one, soft, crumbly at the edges, but stackable, and that changed everything. Here's what matters about that moment. It wasn't the brick itself. It was the idea that you could make the same shape again, and again, and again. Each one the same size, the same weight, the same strength. You could plan with it. You could count on it. You could build something taller than anything a human being had ever raised from the ground. But sun-dried bricks had a limit. Rain could soften them. Floods could melt whole walls back into the mud they came from. So someone had another idea. They pushed those bricks into a kiln. Fires roared inside, hot enough to glow red. And what came out the other side was hard, dense, nearly stone. A single kiln cycle could produce thousands of these fired bricks. Each one could bear far more weight than its sun-dried cousin. The leap from soft clay to fired brick is one of the quiet turning points in human history. No one wrote a poem about it. No king carved his name into the first one. But without it, nothing tall could stand for long. Now picture the plain again. Stacks of fired bricks stretch as far as you can see. Rows of workers carry them on their backs, climbing ramps of packed earth. They're building a ziggurat, a stepped temple that rises in tiers like a staircase for gods. The most famous one stood in Babylon. Its base was massive, and its peak may have reached the height of a 15-story building. Built without steel, without cranes, without concrete, just brick on brick on brick. And here's the part the myth remembers most. Every one of those workers spoke the same language. Think about what that means for a project this size. No lost orders, no confused crews, no one standing on the third tier shouting down to the ground in words nobody can parse. One tongue, one set of terms for none lift, sehur set, mouders, nadi mortar, nadi fis, darand level. The coordination was seamless, and the tower kept climbing. The easy reading of this story is that God punished them for pride. They reached too high, so he scattered their speech and broke their unity. It's a clean moral. Stay humble. Don't challenge heaven. But that reading misses something buried in the ground beneath the myth. Beneath the ruins of Ur, not far from where tradition places Babel, there's a layer of wreckage. Collapsed walls, cracked foundations, roof beams snapped and fallen inward. The pattern matches what happens when the earth lurches sideways, and the dating lines up with a period roughly 5,000 years ago. A quake rippled through the soft river soil. Ziggurats cracked. Temples fell. The ground that held everything up became the thing that tore it apart. Now imagine you're a worker on that tower. The bricks under your feet have been steady for months. You trust them. You trust the hands that laid them. Then a low rumble rises from beneath you, not from the sky, from below. The ramp sways. Cracks race up the walls like dark veins. The top tier tilts and slides. Bricks rain down. People scream. But the screams start to sound different to you because, in the chaos, the shared rhythm of work breaks apart. Crews scatter in different directions. Some head south along the river. Some head east toward the marshes. Some vanish into the hills. What follows is silence, not the silence of peace, the silence of distance. This is where the myth and the science overlap in a way that should stop you cold. Languages don't just split because people decide to talk differently. They split because people stop talking to each other. Put a mountain range between two villages and give it a few hundred years. The words shift, the sounds bend, grammar drifts. One side can no longer understand the other. But add a disaster, add a forced scattering, and that drift speeds up. By the time writing systems could record what people were saying, there were already thousands of distinct tongues spread across the ancient world. One island alone, New Guinea, holds more than 1,000 of them, pressed into valleys and highlands where the terrain itself acts like a wall between villages. So the tower didn't just fall. It kept falling in slow motion for thousands of years. Every new mountain pass, every new river crossing, every new generation that grew up hearing slightly different words from their parents was another brick tumbling from the original structure. And that process never stopped. But here's where the simple version of the story misleads us. We tend to treat the scattering as a tragedy. One language, gone. Unity, lost. Chaos, arrived. And that framing makes sense if you believe unity always equals strength. But does it? Consider this. Older adults who speak 2 languages show a much slower rate of mental decline compared to those who speak only 1. Multiple languages don't just coexist in the brain. They sharpen it. They force the mind to hold 2 systems at once, to switch between them, to notice patterns that a single language speaker might never see. The variety born from Babel's collapse wasn't just a punishment. It was, in a strange way, an upgrade. Still, that doesn't mean breaking apart is painless. And this is where the story leaps forward thousands of years into your own life. You're online right now, or you were a few minutes ago. The system that carried this video to your screen runs on thousands of separate networks, each one managed by a different group, each one routing data through a shared set of rules. Think of those rules as the common language of the internet. Every network speaks the same protocol to pass traffic to its neighbors. It works beautifully, until it doesn't. In a single bad event, a wrong setting can cut off a huge share of the paths that connect those networks. Whole regions go dark, services collapse. People in one country can't reach servers in another. The threads snap, just like they did on that plain between 2 rivers. The tower of data tilts and cracks, and the silence that follows feels the same. Not peace. Distance. The pattern is almost too neat. Build something tall. Bind it with a shared language. Watch it climb, then watch one fracture, one slip in the base, bring the whole thing down and scatter the pieces. You'd think we would have learned by now, but we keep building, and the towers keep getting taller. There's a detail from the ancient records that doesn't get enough attention. Letters found at a site called Marie describe a ziggurat project that paused for over a year. Not because of a quake, not because of divine anger, because of a grain shortage. The workers couldn't eat, so the work stopped. The tower sat half-finished, exposed to weather, while leaders scrambled to find food. That pause tells you something important. These projects were fragile long before any earthquake arrived. They depended on supply chains, on harvests, on the labor of thousands of people who needed to be fed and housed and organized every single day. The myth remembers the dramatic moment, the sudden shattering. But the cracks were already there. They always are. And that's the part that applies to us. Our digital towers don't fall because one dramatic thing goes wrong. They fall because 1,000 small things were already stressed, already neglected, already one bad setting away from failure. The quake just reveals what was already breaking. Now, there's a fair pushback to all of this. Some scholars argue the Babel story is pure allegory, a moral tale with no roots in real geology or real history. They point out that ziggurats collapsed all the time for boring reasons. Bad foundations, poor drainage, shoddy bricks. And they note that language family trees don't all trace back to one spot, between 2 rivers. The roots spread much wider, possibly starting in Africa, possibly branching long before anyone stacked a single brick. That's true, and it matters. No single tower probably stood exactly as the story describes. No single quake probably scattered every language on Earth. But here's what the skeptics miss. Myths don't survive for thousands of years because they're accurate. They survive because they're useful. The Babel story captures a pattern that people saw in their own lives. The cycle of building, breaking, and starting over. It packed that pattern into a story compact enough to carry across generations. The details might be compressed. The truth is structural. What would you do if the ground shook right now? Not the literal ground. The ground under your work, your plans, your sense that the system holding everything together is solid. Because the lesson of Babel isn't just, don't build too tall. It's Manos, know what your tower is standing on. And know that the language binding your crew together is more fragile than the bricks. Nearly half the world's languages are in danger of falling silent within a generation. Each one carries ways of seeing, ways of solving problems, ways of naming things that no other language captures in quite the same way. When a language dies, it's not just words that vanish. It's a whole framework of thought. Another island sinking beneath the surface, its arches fading into dark water. If this story stayed with you, if you felt the ground shift even a little, the next one goes deeper. Subscribe, because the story that follows this one will change how you see what came after the scattering. The bricks are still warm, the dust is still settling, and somewhere, on a small island drifting far from the ruins, someone is speaking words no one else on Earth has ever heard. Not a punishment, a beginning.